Hello everyone, Alan Sens here again, and welcome to this segment on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So today we're going to look straight at the question of how the bombs were dropped on Japan in terms of the actual events leading up to the actual dropping of the two bombs. Okay, let's get started. So our learning objectives for today are the following. You should be able to describe why Hiroshima and Nagasaki were chosen as targets, and you should be able to explain how the bomb was dropped, what the actual process was. The decision to drop the bomb was made by a very small circle of individuals, and ultimately, of course, the decision was a product of discussion between President Truman and his closest advisors. Those advisors included Henry Stimson, the Secretary of War at the time, Jimmy Burns, the Secretary of State, and of course, President Truman himself. However, the selection of specific targets was left to a target committee. The committee was composed of just 5 military officers and 3 Manhattan Project scientists. The target committee was chaired by none other than General Leslie Groves. The target committee considered the following cities as targets for the atomic bomb: Kyoto, Yokohama, Gokua, Niigata, Hiroshima, and the Emperor's Palace in Tokyo. U.S. Secretary of War Henry Stimson removed Kyoto from the list because he admired the city ever since his honeymoon there several decades earlier. So Kyoto was removed from the list, and instead, in its place, Nagasaki was put on the target list. Now, what were the criteria for selecting these cities? At a meeting between the U.S. Secretary of War, Henry Stimson, and key Manhattan Project scientists, a number of things were agreed, but among them was the idea that the Japanese could not be given any warning, that the attack would not concentrate on a civilian area, but that, as the minutes go on to record, we should seek to make a profound psychological impression on as many of the inhabitants as possible. The most desirable target would be a vital war plant employing a large number of workers and closely surrounded by workers' houses. The contradiction in this statement and in the meeting itself is clearly evident. They were talking about no concentration on a civilian area, but a clear effort to target workers and their homes. Obviously, there's a serious contradiction here. The decision to designate Hiroshima as the priority target and the other cities on the target list as secondary targets was made on July 30th, when a cable was received in Washington indicating that Hiroshima was the only city on the target list with no prisoner of war camps. Actually, this information was inaccurate. There were prisoners of war in Hiroshima, including 12 American airmen. But it was on this last piece of information that Hiroshima was chosen as the primary target for the first bomb. The bomb was assembled and brought to the island of Tinian, where it was loaded into an American airplane. This airplane, a B-29 bomber, dubbed the Enola Gay, flown by Paul Tibbets, was the aircraft that dropped the first atomic bomb on the city of Hiroshima. The final decision to drop the bomb on Hiroshima was largely left to the pilot, Paul Tibbets, who decided on Hiroshima based on the favorable weather conditions that very day. Similarly, a few days later, the Fat Man bomb was assembled and loaded into another B-29 bomber, this one dubbed the Boxcar, flown by Major Charles Sweeney. The initial target of Boxcar and the Fat Man bomb was Kokura, but bad weather and fuel consumption caused the crew to divert to Nagasaki, a secondary target, en route. And it was on that basic level of fate that the bomb was dropped on Nagasaki rather than Kokura. The routes of the two aircraft are shown here, flying from bases in Tinian. The Enola Gay flew across this stretch here, dropped the bomb on Hiroshima, and then flew back. The Boxcar flew towards Kokura, diverted because of bad weather, dropped the bomb on Nagasaki, and then returned back to Tinian. And that was then the process, the mechanics, if you will, the military operation that led to the dropping of the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the final culmination of a political process, a technical process, a scientific process that led to the development and use of the atomic bomb in warfare. I hope now you are able to describe why Hiroshima and Nagasaki were chosen as targets and how those targets were chosen. And I hope you are now able to explain how the bomb was physically dropped on the Japanese home islands. Okay, so now we've kind of reached a point where we have witnessed the development of the science behind the bomb. We've witnessed the development of the bomb itself. We've looked at the reality of strategic bombing and the question of war crimes. And now we've seen how the decision was ultimately made to drop the bomb and why it was made. And now we've seen how the bombs were physically dropped. There's one more piece, and that's the piece of the effects of the bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And we will address that in a discussion in class. I hope you found this video interesting. We'll see you again soon.